Yeah, I just feel like a lot of people are on it.
Right, and don't talk about it.
And don't talk about
Sure.
it. And so I'm like, well, why are we like questioning? We should just talk about it and be totally open.
Leadership leads to talent development. You really want a leader that wants to develop talent and that wants their team to be the best in class and the best team.
Welcome back to Golf Vibes, the one and only destination for the most explosive, jaw-dropping, and completely unfiltered stories erupting from the world of tennis. People, I need you to stop everything you are doing right now, because what we are about to break down today is not simply a sports story. This is not some celebrity spat blown out of proportion by social media. This is a full-scale, $50 million war that is going to permanently and irreversibly redraw the boundary lines between professional athletes and the ravenous media machine that has been feeding off their suffering and vulnerability for decades. If you believe that the most brutal, most consequential battles in tennis were fought at Wimbledon, at the US Open, or beneath the scorching Australian sun, then I have news for you. You have been watching entirely the wrong court. The most significant, highest stakes, and absolutely merciless match in the entire recorded history of this sport is unfolding right now inside the panicked boardrooms and the frantically buzzing legal departments of ABC and its corporate parent, the colossal Disney Corporation. The so-called queens of daytime television believed they were untouchable. They genuinely thought they could drag a 20-year-old rising star onto their stage, back her into a corner, pick apart her wounds for cheap entertainment, and simply walk away without facing any consequence whatsoever. That calculation was catastrophically, devastatingly wrong. Because they made one fatal and career-ending miscalculation. They forgot that the greatest tennis player who has ever walked this earth carries a memory like a steel trap, a legal war chest capable of funding a small nation, and an absolute zero-tolerance policy for anyone who operates like a bully. So settle in, grab your popcorn, smash that like button right now, because the revenge masterclass that Serena Williams is currently orchestrating against The View is precisely the kind of story that gets told and retold across generations. Let us go back to the very beginning, because context is everything in this situation and you deserve the complete, unvarnished picture. For the past 4 weeks, the tennis world has been completely electrified by the story of Alex Eala, the 20-year-old Filipino tennis sensation, who has been turning heads and shattering records on her breathtaking rise through the professional ranks. Alex Eala is not merely a promising young player with a bright future somewhere on the horizon. She is a genuine phenomenon. She is the living embodiment of an entirely new generation of tennis, fearless in competition, technically brilliant in execution, and representing not just herself, but an entire nation and an entire region of the world that has been waiting and hoping and dreaming for a champion they could truly call their own. The Philippines has erupted with an almost delirious sense of national pride, watching this extraordinary young woman compete at the absolute highest levels of professional sport, and that pride is entirely justified. Alex Eala is the real deal, and everyone inside the tennis community knew it from the moment she arrived. So when she was booked to appear on The View, the flagship ABC daytime program with its massive national audience, it seemed on the surface like a perfectly reasonable and celebratory occasion. A young, exciting, inspiring athlete receiving a mainstream platform to share her story, connect with a broader audience, and show the world exactly who she is beyond the baseline. That is what the segment was supposed to be. A celebration, an introduction, a moment of shared joy and genuine inspiration. What it allegedly became was something so fundamentally different, so calculated in its intent, and so deeply disturbing in its execution that it has shaken the very foundations of how sports media operates in this country. According to multiple sources with direct and verified knowledge of what actually transpired inside that studio, the interview rapidly devolved from a celebratory conversation into what can only honestly be described as a coordinated ambush. Producers allegedly abandoned the approved script entirely. The hosts, most visibly and most aggressively Sunny Hostin, allegedly pivoted away from the agreed-upon talking points and began launching a relentless series of invasive, pointed, and deliberately uncomfortable questions. These were not questions designed to inform the audience or create genuine entertainment value. They were engineered specifically to corner a young woman, to destabilize her emotionally, and to mine whatever pain or personal vulnerability they could locate for the sole and cynical purpose of generating daytime television ratings. Sit with that reality for a moment. A 20-year-old athlete, a foreign country, a massive national television platform, surrounded by cameras, crew, and a live studio audience. No warning whatsoever, being bombarded with questions deliberately crafted to break her down emotionally on live television. And here is the thing about Alex Eala that these producers clearly and fundamentally underestimated. She did not break. Not even close. She held her composure with a poise, a dignity, and a quiet strength that far exceeded her years and left everyone watching in stunned admiration. And then, in a move that instantly became one of the most discussed and celebrated moments in recent sports media history, she walked out. She stood up, kept her head held perfectly high, and she left that studio. That walkout was not merely an act of personal courage, though it absolutely was that. It was the spark that ignited a $50 million inferno. And ABC is still desperately scrambling to figure out how to extinguish the flames. Now here is where this story explodes into something truly historic and unprecedented. Because the response to what was done to Alex Eala did not emerge from a PR agency or a corporate sports management firm working through official channels. It came from the very top. From the absolute pinnacle of women's tennis. From the woman who fundamentally and permanently redefined what it means to be a champion both on and off the court. Serena Williams, the greatest of all time, the owner of 23 Grand Slam singles titles, the most decorated and dominant tennis player the sport has ever produced, did not simply post a supportive tweet. She did not publish a heartfelt Instagram caption and move on with her day. She went to war. Full and total war. Industry insiders have confirmed to Golf Vibes that Serena Williams is not a sympathetic bystander hovering at the edges of this story. She is the silent, ice-cold, and utterly lethal general commanding a $50 million lawsuit aimed with absolute precision directly at ABC's jugular. This lawsuit is not a warning shot fired across the bow. It is a cannonball launched at point-blank range, with the full intention of doing maximum damage. Here is what makes this entire situation even more staggering to comprehend. Since retiring from professional competition, Serena Williams has constructed a genuine business empire. Her venture capital firm, Serena Ventures, has invested in hundreds of companies across multiple industries. She understands leverage, strategy, and institutional power at a level that most people can barely begin to comprehend. She did not simply recommend a competent attorney to Alex's team and send them off with good wishes. According to sources embedded within her inner circle, Serena personally deployed her own formidable legal team, a group of elite litigators and corporate fixers who operate at the absolute highest levels of media and entertainment law. These are not attorneys whose primary weapon is the strongly worded letter. These are the kind of legal minds who subpoena internal emails before breakfast, depose executive producers without flinching, and systematically dismantle institutional cultures from the inside out. They do not ask for apologies. They demand resignations, canceled programs, and financial settlements that make it physically and financially painful for a network to ever consider repeating its mistakes. One source, who spoke to Golf Vibes on strict condition of anonymity, put it in terms that sent genuine chills down our spines. The words were simple and devastating. They tried to break a young woman's spirit for ratings. Serena is here to make absolutely certain they pay the full price for that decision. To truly and completely understand why Serena Williams has gone to these extraordinary, almost unprecedented lengths, you must understand the deeply personal and profoundly emotional dimension driving every decision she is making. Because when Serena watched the footage of Alex Eala being cornered and targeted under those studio lights, she did not see a stranger. She saw a ghost of herself. She saw every uncomfortable and loaded press conference where journalists attempted to bait her with deliberately provocative questions about her body, her personality, her private relationships, and her character. She saw herself at Indian Wells in 2001, just a teenager walking onto the court and being met by an entire stadium of people booing her, jeering her, directing racially charged vitriol at a young black girl whose only unforgivable sin was being extraordinary at what she did. She saw herself navigating years upon years of media coverage that was not merely biased but actively and systematically hostile. Coverage that demanded she perform gratitude for treatment designed to diminish and demean her. Coverage that refused to see her as the transcendent champion she clearly was and instead treated her as a curiosity, a spectacle, and a moving target. Serena Williams fought every single one of those battles with her racket, with her unshakable attitude, and with her relentless and overwhelming excellence. But she fought them largely in isolation, because the infrastructure of athlete protection and institutional support simply did not exist in the form it needed to. And according to people who are very close to her, she has reportedly stated this week with complete clarity and unmistakable fire burning in her voice, "I did not fight those battles across 20 years so that the next generation would have to stand alone and endure the same scripted toxicity. We are ending this now." Those words are not rhetoric or performance. They are a declaration of intent from someone who possesses the financial resources, the cultural influence, and the deeply personal motivation to follow through on every single syllable. When Serena Williams decides something is going to end, it ends. Full stop. Now, if you assume that the nightmare scenario for ABC concluded with Serena Williams entering the picture, take a breath, because it is about to get significantly and dramatically worse for the network. Serena is not walking into this battle alone. In a development that has left sports media executives across the entire industry absolutely reeling, Novak Djokovic, the most decorated men's tennis player in the history of the sport, the winner of 24 Grand Slam titles, and the founder of the Professional Tennis Players Association, has stepped directly and forcefully into the fray. Together, Serena Williams and Novak Djokovic have formed what insiders are calling an iron dome of protection constructed entirely around Alex Eala. And what that means in practical terms for ABC is that they are no longer facing a lawsuit brought by a single 2-0-year-old plaintiff navigating an unfamiliar legal landscape. They are facing the combined, earth-shattering legal, financial, and reputational force of the two greatest tennis players who have ever lived simultaneously. Djokovic's involvement is rooted in his own lived experience in ways that make his participation feel not just logical but inevitable. No athlete in the modern era has been more relentlessly and viciously targeted by media institutions and political forces than Novak Djokovic. He was detained at an international border and deported from a Grand Slam tournament he was heavily favored to win. The global media circus surrounding that episode was, by any honest measure, a sustained and deliberate campaign of humiliation directed at a man who had dedicated his entire existence to the pursuit of athletic excellence. He was booed in stadiums. He was ridiculed on talk shows. He was cast as a villain in a narrative where the actual facts were dramatically more complicated than the story being sold to casual viewers hungry for a simple target. Djokovic knows with bone-deep certainty what it truly feels like to be tried and publicly convicted by a panel of television personalities who have never held a tennis racket under pressure, never experienced the suffocating weight of a Grand Slam final, and never had to defend their fundamental character in front of a national audience without preparation, without support, and without warning. When he witnessed what was done to Alex Eala on The View, he reportedly recognized the playbook immediately and with absolute clarity. He reached out to Serena within hours of the incident becoming public. Through the Professional Tennis Players Association, which Djokovic founded specifically to create the structural player protections that have historically been absent from professional tennis, Novak has been aggressively and vocally advocating for Alex Eala's rights and for the broader, more universal principle that professional athletes are human beings who deserve dignity, adequate preparation, and genuinely fair treatment whenever they engage with media platforms. The PTPA has been building momentum toward exactly this kind of defining moment since its founding, and Djokovic has made clear through his team that this case will be deployed to establish binding legal precedents that protect every professional tennis player, male or female, veteran champion or rising star, from the ambush tactics allegedly employed by The View's production team. The legal strategy being deployed by this Iron Dome coalition is surgical in its precision and devastating in its scope. The lawsuit alleges multiple serious legal claims including defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and the deliberate creation of a hostile and psychologically damaging environment. But what makes this legal action genuinely terrifying for ABC is not the claims themselves in isolation. It is the methodology of the team prosecuting them. Serena's legal squad is not targeting the hosts who sat in front of the cameras and read from the teleprompters. They are targeting the entire institutional architecture that made the ambush possible in the first place. Producers are being subpoenaed. Internal communications, pre-show emails, production notes, and editorial planning documents are being demanded. These materials will reveal, if the allegations prove accurate, a deliberate and premeditated strategy to use Alex Eala's personal history and emotional vulnerabilities as raw material for viral daytime content. The message being delivered to Sunny Hostin, To the executive producers, to the senior editorial staff, and to the top leadership at ABC, is not remotely subtle. You did not simply target one vulnerable young woman. You targeted an entire tennis family. And the tennis family does not forgive, does not forget, and has resources you are entirely unprepared to confront. What is unfolding here is ultimately about something even larger than the protection of Alex Eala or the punishment of ABC. It is about who gets to tell the stories of athletes, on whose terms, and with whose dignity kept intact and protected. For far too long, athletes, particularly young athletes, athletes of color, and women athletes, have been positioned and treated as content to be consumed rather than human beings entitled to respect. Serena Williams spent 23 Grand Slams dismantling every ceiling placed above her. Now she is using everything she built, every dollar, every relationship, every ounce of hard-won power and influence, to dismantle a system that tried to install a ceiling over Alex Eala before her career has even truly begun. The era of exploiting young athletes for clicks and for ratings is finished. Golf Vibes is here to make sure the whole world knows it.